Ministry Mental Health Summit. So it's a joy and privilege to be able to share with you today. And equipping faith leaders, faith community to support mental health care has been my passion and life work. So today we're going to talk about attachment, which is so important. So just like Einstein, E equals mc squared, right? It's a unifying theory in physics. What's a unifying theory in psychology? I think it's attachment. So it brings together what we see, behavior, how we think, our cognition, how we feel, our emotions, and also relationships. So this is crucial. So that's why the talk is titled Attachment, the Key to Understanding and Transforming Behavior, Cognition, Emotion, and Relationship. So, of course, my background as a primary care physician specializing in mental health has really helped me to see how important attachment is. So I became a family doctor, and then I figured out I didn't get the training I need to really help people, right? So people come in with headache, so I got curious, what is causing your headache? My husband. I can't give a pill for that, so what do I do, right? Oh, I have an upset stomach all the time, there's always acid. What do you think is doing that? It's my son. I don't have a pill for that either. So I went back to school here and studied counseling, marriage, and family therapy. So that's how I shifted my practice to a more holistic model. We're not just looking after people in terms of the body, the biology, but also the psychological part, the spiritual part, and the relational part. So that's how I got into this. So right now I'm working as a primary care physician specializing in mental health and also run a lot of groups. And the approach that I like is an attachment-based approach because it seems to make the most sense to me. And that's what I'll be introducing today. So today we have two learning objectives. The first is to learn to use attachment to understand and transform our relationship with God, with each other, with family members, partners, and even within parts of ourselves. And I will share how we do that using case examples and some videos. And also I want you to experience, because attachment is experiential. You don't learn about it. You have to feel it. So experience how attachment can be applied to working with individuals, couples, families, and groups. So this approach is very powerful. When I was starting off in counseling, I learned about 30, 40 approaches. This one is good for that, this one's for individual, this one's for couple, this one's for that. Now I don't have to do that. One approach works with everyone. Individual, if they're sitting in front of you, couple, whole family, even a whole group. It's the same approach. So very, very convenient. So that's what I like. So this is what we're going to cover today. First, we're going to talk about the theology of attachment, and I'll keep it very simple. We'll talk about attachment theory, how important attachment is in terms of our health and well-being, and looking at mental health challenges from the perspective of loss of attachment. And then we'll talk about how we apply attachment to working with individuals, couples, families, and groups. And then we'll do a summary, and hopefully we'll have some time to take some questions. Now, attachment is right out of the Bible. So you look at the creation story, Genesis, there are 7 goods. Good, 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 very good. And then, not good. Wow. That's a way to emphasize the not good. What is the not good? It is not good for the man to be alone. That's the not good. So here we already see attachment. So we know research shows loneliness kills. If you are lonely, you increase your risk of dying by 39%. And if you're lonely, the risk to your health, to your mortality, is the same as smoking 15 cigarettes for your whole life. Now, you wouldn't do that, but that's what lonely people, the impact is on their life and their well-being. Yeah. So I would argue if you look at the Bible, it's a story of attachment. It's a story of how we lose attachment and how we restore attachment at different levels with God, with people. So this is what attachment is about. Now, I want you to experience attachment, loss of attachment, how devastating it is to even a little infant. And when we restore attachment, what changes you see. Now, this is just from YouTube. The link is there. Now, people usually watch the still face with moms. I like to show the still face with dads because it's the same, right? So let's take a look at this. Now, when you watch this clip, I want you to pay attention to the three parts. Okay? So the first part is normal attachment. So you see daddy playing with the kid, and they're having a lot of fun. And then the second part, as part of the experiment, the daddy cannot respond to the kid for 3 minutes. And you can see how the kid responds. Okay? Totally dysregulated. And then the last part, when attachment restores, you can see what happens. Okay, let's play this. Can everyone hear? So this is from Medtronic, a psychology professor at Boston University.
What we've learned over the years is that babies are much more capable than we initially imagined, but they're also much more vulnerable. And in Medtronic's still face experiment, we get to see both in a very short period. We see the baby and the dad playing together in their routine.
So this is normal
They know
attachment.
about each other and things that they do together, and it's
See how they
fun.
respond to each other.
And then we ask the dad to turn away. And when he turns back, to keep his face completely still and not respond to the baby. And the results are
This is a
almost
loss of
immediate,
attachment.
and they're devastating. The baby looks to the dad and tries
Kids
to get
notice
the dad
right away.
back into those games. Hey, we were just playing just a minute ago, weren't we? We were having fun. What's going on? And then the baby starts to get frustrated when that doesn't work. So she'll have to look away and look around the room and find something else and then look back and say, now can we play? And within 3 minutes, the baby has really dissolved. She is trying to get out of the chair. She's uncomfortable. She's reaching out to dad. She's crying. And then we ask the dad to turn away again. And when he turns back, to go back to being regular dad. And it's a joyous reunion. They get back into their routines, the things that they do together, the things that they were just doing 3 minutes before. And the baby settles down and gets back to the comfort zone that she's developed with the dad. What we see in the still face experiment is how able the child is to initiate and be part of the relationship between the father and the child, but also how much she depends on that relationship in order to keep an even keel. And when she's grounded and comfortable, she can explore the world. She can meet new people. She can try new things. She's got that safe base that she can always rely on. And there's a trust level there. We can only begin to imagine what it's like for babies.
So this is the
to
crucial
like
part,
that
the pathology.
all of the time. And they don't get that responsiveness. And they don't get any help getting back to an even keel. And the results can be very tragic. They can have trouble trusting people. They can have trouble relating to people. And they can have trouble being calm enough so that they can explore the world and take part in the world. So we know that those initial relationships that initial responsiveness and interaction between the father and the baby are keys to the baby's success as a child and as an adult.
Okay, so we'll continue the next slide. So we see the good part when there's attachment, the not good part when there's loss of attachment. Now let's talk about attachment theory. Now as I go through this part, I want you to reflect on another video and try to figure out what your attachment type is. There are 4 attachment types. And then if you can do that, figure out the attachment type of people that are important to you. People who you love, your partner, your kids, okay? Because this has a big impact in terms of how they relate to you and what their needs are. Okay? So this is another YouTube, 7.5 minutes long. So if you want to look at it, you can just search attachment theory, how childhood affects life. So I'm going to highlight some learning points first, and then we'll watch the video. So attachment reminds us a strong emotional, physical bond to at least one primary caregiver in our first few years of life is critical to our development. So if this bond is strong, we're securely attached, then we feel safe to explore the world. And we know there's always a safe base. We can go back to refuel, to recharge. Now, if this bond is weak, we feel insecurely attached. So we're afraid to leave, explore a scary-looking world. And we're not sure whether we have a place to which we can return, and that's scary. So by the age of 1, we can already assess attachment style. So to do this, we do an experiment. We let the kid play with their mother for a few minutes, then the child's left alone. The key moment is we look at the child's reaction when mother returns. Okay? And the long-term effects of our attachment in early years are well documented. I'll show you some data. So key ones are affects our success in school, health, coronary arterial disease, hypertension, alcoholism. All the stuff I see in my office as a physician are related to attachment. Now, kids who feel securely attached, they can make friends, their worldview gets reinforced, they develop optimism, they have good relationship at school, at college, at work, and later on in their family. So this video, which I like a lot, uses a family of 4 to illustrate the 4 different attachment styles. Okay, so you can look at Luca, representing secure attachment, and representing anxious, ambivalent attachment, and you can reflect on their experience with their caregiver and also the consequence that had on them. And then Joe, anxious avoidant, and Amy, anxious disorganized. Okay, so we'll go back to our videos. Okay, we'll go back to the beginning. Okay, so hopefully you can start using the attachment lens to look at yourself and the important people in your life.
Theory argues that a strong emotional and physical bond to one primary caregiver in our first years of life is critical to our development. If our bonding is strong and we are securely attached, then we feel safe to explore the world. We know that there is always that safe base, which we can return to any time. If our bond is weak, we feel insecurely attached. We are afraid to leave or explore a rather scary-looking world, because we are not sure if we can return. People who are securely attached are said to have greater trust, can connect to others, and as a result are more successful in life. Insecurely attached people tend to mistrust others, lack social skills, and have problems forming relationships. There is one type of secure attachment, and there are 3 types of insecure attachments: anxious ambivalent, anxious avoidant, and anxious disorganized. In responses to distress, the first 3 react organized, while the last acts disorganized. To understand the theory better, let's look at Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who have 4 children, Luca, Anne, Joe, and Amy. The Smiths are lovely parents who cuddle, make frequent eye contact, speak warmly, and are always there for their kids. But one day, Mr. Smith falls very sick and dies. For Mrs. Smith, life now becomes very difficult. She spends all day working, while at the same time trying to care for her children. An impossible task. At 6 years of age, Luca's brain is for the most part developed, his character strong and his worldview shaped. The new situation does not affect him much. He knows there is still always Mum, his safe haven. He feels securely attached. Later, he turns into a trusting and optimistic young man. His self-image is positive. Anne, who is 3, has problems coping with the new lack of attention. To Anne, her mother now acts unpredictably. She is anxious about their relationship, and as a result becomes clingy. To get her mum's attention, she has to raise her emotional state and scream. When her mum finally reacts with a predictable response, she herself acts ambivalent and doesn't show her true feelings. Later in life, others think Anne is unpredictable or moody. Her self-image is less positive. Her attachment style is anxious ambivalent. 2-year-old Joe spends his days with his uncle, who loves him, but thinks that a good education means being strict. If little Joe shows too much emotion or is too loud, his uncle gets angry and sometimes punitive. This scares Joe. He learns that to avoid fear, he has to avoid showing his feelings, also in other situations. As an adult, he continues this strategy and has problems entering relationships. His image of himself is rather negative. His attachment is anxious avoidant. Amy, who is just 1 year old, gets sent to a nursery. The staff there is poorly trained, overworked, and often very stressed. Some are outright abusive. Amy therefore becomes anxious of the very people she seeks security from, a conflict which totally disorganizes her ideas about love and safety. As she is experiencing fear without resolution, she tries to avoid all social situations. As an adult, she thinks of herself as unworthy of love. Her self-image is very negative. Her attachment is anxious, disorganized. Our attachment is formed in the very first years of our lives, a time when we are too young to communicate our anxiety, and as a result can experience high levels of stress. Then our adrenal gland, an organ sitting on top of our kidneys, produces the stress hormones adrenaline and cortisol. The heart rate increases, the blood pressure goes up, and we become alert. If that happens frequently, it is called toxic stress. Toxic because it impairs the development of a child's brain and weakens the immune system. In embryos or at a very young age, toxic stress can even switch the expressions of genes, which can affect our health many decades later. By simulating a strange situation, we can assess an attachment style already by the age of 1. To do this, we let the child play with their mother for a few minutes inside a room. Then the child is left alone. The key moment is the child's reaction when their mother returns. Securely attached children first usually hug their mother, then can calm down and eventually get back to playing. Insecurely attached children can be ambivalent and avoidant. Some can't stop crying or refuse to continue playing. The long-term effects of our attachment in the early years are well documented. Using the theory, researchers at Minnesota University were able to predict already at age 3 if a child would drop out of high school with 77% accuracy. In another study, undergraduates at Harvard were asked to assess how close they felt to their parents. 35 years later, they were asked about their health. 91% of those who said they had a rather broken relationship with their mother were also diagnosed with health issues, including coronary artery disease, hypertension, and alcoholism. For those that had reported a warm relationship, the figure of poor health diagnosis was just 45%. But there is another reason why the early years deserve special attention. They are the starting place for subsequent behaviors. A kid that feels securely attached at age 2 can make friends at kindergarten. Their worldview gets reinforced with every interaction, and they develop optimism. As a result, they make good relationships at school, then at college, and later at work. Highly insecurely attached children can miss out on this opportunity. Psychologist John Bowlby, a pioneer in attachment theory, allegedly said, "What cannot be communicated to the mother cannot be communicated to the self." In other words, those who feel insecurely attached might not quite understand themselves. To get to know who they are and what they feel, they might have to go way back in time.
So we talk about attachment theory. Hopefully you reflect and you'll be able to identify your own attachment type and those of the people you love who are important in your life. Everything we said about attachment also applies to our relationship with God. And I'll just quickly summarize the research. So spiritual attachment, relationship with God, is similar to human attachment. So we also seek proximity to God, just as we seek proximity to our caregiver. And we see God as our safe haven and secure base. People with secure attachment see God, experience God as supportive, being there for them, whereas people with anxious attachment may have a deeply emotional, grasping, struggling relationship with God. And people with avoidant attachment may experience God as being very distant, very remote, even inaccessible. So a secure attachment to God is inversely related to distress, whereas anxious attachment to God and stressful life events are positively related to distress. And here, this is from a book called Attached to God, a practical guide to deeper spiritual experience. So obviously we can also use attachment to help us experience God in a deeper way. So what I want to do is, as we talk about attachment, I'm going to illustrate with an actual clinical case. So this is a family in which the Chinese parents are very worried about the son scanning. And then we'll first take a look at the attachment types of the different family members. So father, he reports frequent arguments and fights with his son, in which he would explode with anger, and he tells us he grew up in a very poor family, had to study very hard to make it in life. So anxious, ambivalent attachment with respect to his son. So he's very critical. And this is why he says, my parents had to work very hard and were not there. I want to be there for my son. I'm trying so hard to help and guide him, and yet he tells me I'm the worst father and don't deserve to be called father. Ouch. Mother. So she tries to break up the arguments and fights between her husband and son. She feels stressed out, helpless, hopeless, suicidal, and the husband criticizes her as being too soft, spoiling the son. So avoidant attachment with both her partner and her son. So this is what she said. I don't want to be the one trying to stop the fights between my husband and son. It's better for me to be dead, but I know my daughter still needs me. And let's look at the kids. So the son, teenager, he's triggered by his father's anger, criticism, sarcasm, and he argues and fights back now, which he didn't do when he was younger. And is usually fighting over gaming with his friends online. So he has an avoidant attachment with his parents. And this is what he said. I just stay in my room to avoid him. I don't even eat dinner with him anymore. I wish I can move out. And the daughter, she tries to ignore the father and mother fighting, and sometimes she would scream at them to stop and helps mother to separate them. So she has secure attachment with her parents and her father. They're able to talk. I try not to pay attention. I just go to my room, do my work. When I'm scared, I tell my brother, you go to mom's room, and dad, you go to my room, calm down. I wish everyone had a good relationship with each other and are happy. So this is what attachment types look like in the counseling room. So now let's take a look at the impact of attachment on both physical and mental health. Now, two experts in attachment are Nicolinser and Shaver, and this is what they say in the book. It's very profound. secure attachment as a style or habitual engagement strategy has been linked in systematic research to almost every positive index of mental health and general well-being outlined in the social sciences. That's very powerful. And here I'm going to show you some Canadian data, even though it's a small study, but it's Canadian. So here we look at the association between the different attachment types and the frequency of the different health conditions that I, as a physician, see in my office every day. So if you have avoidant attachment, you have more arthritis, neck pain, back pain, headache, other chronic pain. Which makes sense, because when you're avoidant, you suppress your emotions. You avoid your emotion. And your emotion has to come up some other way, usually somatically. Now, if you have fearful or anxious attachment, you have more headaches, chronic pain, stroke, heart attack, high blood pressure, ulcer. Okay? So the stress, again, goes inside. And now, look at this. Secure attachment is highly protective for depression, anxiety, alcohol, and substance use. Whereas both avoidant and fearful attachment are risk factors for depression, anxiety, alcohol, and substance use. And you can see the red are the ones that are statistically significant. Now, a simple, crude measure of attachment is marital status. So we can compare people who are never married to people who have been married. And we can look at all causes of mortality, and the data is the same. Okay? So if you're never married, there's higher mortality regardless of the cause. In other words, if you're lucky to have a partner nagging you all the time, you're driving, put on your seatbelt, see your dentist, go to your family doctor, get a checkup. This is too sweet, too salty, too much starch, eat more vegetable, eat more fiber. You know what? If you have a partner like that, you live 11 years longer. Right. 11 years longer. That's what it shows. Yeah, thank you. So let's look at our clinical case, the impacts of attachment on physical and mental health. Now, this is more obvious in the parents. So father remembers an anxious, ambivalent attachment with his son. He's super critical. And he reports, my sleep seems to be suffering. I can only sleep 4 or 5 hours each night. I'm stressed out from my family situation. And my doctor tells me I have mild depression, mild anxiety, in addition to my anger management problems. I feel so tired, so now I start to try to jog once or twice a week. Mother, who has avoidant attachment. I feel anxious. I have poor sleep. I get frequent headaches, pains in my neck and my back. I try to stay up late to have some quiet time for myself and to say goodnight to my son and to wait for him to talk to me. And I think of suicide as the only way to escape. I won't do it because of my daughter. My doctor tells me I have moderate depression and anxiety. So let's look at mental health challenges from this perspective of loss of attachment. So from the still face experiment that we just watched, we look at the steps in disconnection and also the steps in repair. So we see the kid trying to reach the daddy or mommy, right? So this is the reach, invitation, come, connect with me. I need to be close with you. And then we see the emotional disconnection when there's no response. And then the baby protests, pushes, desperate, demanding, turns away, and then finally melts down. Okay? Now, if this continues, then the relationship is ruptured. And the longer it is, the harder it is to repair. Now, the other way is for the repair to happen. So how do you repair broken attachment connection? So you have to attune emotionally, become responsive and present, restore the safe connection, soothe the nervous system, and have effective communication. And then this helps to build lasting love. Okay, so let's go through each of these stages. So this is from John Bowlby, the father of attachment. So when the caregiver is inaccessible, unresponsive, and unengaged, the child goes through predictable stages. So the first stage is angry protest. And you see the child raising his hand, holding a fist, and look at their angry eyes and angry face. Second stage is an anxious clinging, reaching forward. I want to touch you, I want to hold on to you, don't leave me, clinging. And then the third stage, depression of despair. This is hopeless. This is so useless. And then finally, they detach. They turn away. Now, let's look at this in terms of mental health challenges. So let's be a bit professional here. So when we talk about mental health, obviously we talk about the DSM-5, right? Which sets out the criteria for diagnosing the different mental health conditions. So these are the DSM-5 terms. So loss of attachment. The first stage is angry protest. So if they see a psychiatrist, they'll probably come back with these labels: conduct disorder, ODD, disruptive mood regulation disorder, psychosis, hypomania, mania. And here we see the father share. When I'm not able to connect with my son and I can't have any influence, I just lose it. I can't control my anger. And my verbal, physical aggression, it just takes over. Second stage, anxious clinging. And people might come back with these labels from a psychiatrist: generalized anxiety, panic disorder, social anxiety, separation anxiety, OCD, PTSD, agoraphobia, school refusal and avoidance. And your mom saying, when I'm at home, my body's always tense, and I'm always anticipating when my husband and son will fight again. Anxious. The depression of despair. And then these are the labels: depression, self-harm, suicide, borderline, bipolar, bereavement. And the mother shares, I feel so hopeless and helpless that I start to believe that suicide is the only way out. And then the final phase, detachment. So ASD, autistic spectrum disorder, ADHD, addiction. So here the son says, playing games with my friend helps me to calm down, feel worthwhile and connected. I don't want to be at home, but I can't afford to move out there. So I just shut my door and stay in my room. So we see we can look at all the mental health challenges as a result of loss of attachment, which makes sense, okay? Because then, other than medication, we have other ways to help them, to treat them. Question?
You used or said bipolar or autism are results.
Well, I'm not saying they're results. Right? What I'm saying is it can be associated with different stages of loss of attachment. So obviously when you look at something that's very complex, like ASD, bipolar, there are many, many multifactorial things in terms of the causation. Genetics is a big part, the environment's a big part, how they interact, epigenetics is also a big part. Okay? But I'm just suggesting you look at things from this perspective, which leads to the different treatment. Right? Now, I'm not suggesting, so don't quote me, that people get off their medication. Right? So don't get that wrong. So medication obviously do have a role in stabilizing all these mental health conditions, okay? But they may not be able to do everything. Okay? So you need medication and you need to add other stuff. And why I'm suggesting is add attachment, and you'll get the most bang from your money. So we talk about how important attachment is, the impact. Let's look at how we apply these attachment concepts in working with individuals, couples, families, and groups. So let's start with individuals. So here we talk about emotionally focused individual therapy, which is attachment focus. And there are 4 goals in EFIT. So the first is to offer corrective experiences and positive impact model of self and other and shape stable lasting change. So a secure connection with yourself. So when we do individual therapy, we're working on the relationship with the different parts of self. So the therapist may say to the father, I can really see how hard you are working to be there for your son and how much you care for him and worry about his future. This shows that you are a good father, try to do your best. Now, no one has said that to him. Right? So this is a totally new experience said to him by a respectable professional. the second goal is to offer transformative moments where vulnerability is encountered with balance. Usually we run away from vulnerability. We use anger, we use shame to defend against vulnerability. In EFT, we help people encounter their vulnerability. So here the therapist says to the father, so when you blow up and when you lose it, inside you're actually so scared that your son won't make it if he didn't work as hard as you did in school and sacrifice playing. And that's a scary place to be for a parent who wants to succeed, who wants your son to succeed just like you. Right? So we're using a transformative moment, so going beneath his anger, and we're touching his fear, his vulnerable part. Now, of course, when people become vulnerable, they don't push people away, right? They pull people close, right? If you see me struggling with the microphone, the audio, you have compassion. You say, let me call for help. Okay? Dr. Wong is struggling here. He needs help, right? If I was angry and blowing up, you'd probably leave the room, right? The third goal, to enable clients to move into accessibility, openness, responsiveness, and full engagement. These characterize secure attachment with both self, parts of self, and the people around us. So here's what the father says. I didn't recognize that my way of helping and guiding my son actually traumatized him. No wonder he no longer feels safe with me, and he cannot trust me at all. Thank you so much for helping me see my way of trying to help and guide him actually triggers him and makes him feel that he is never good enough for me. And he has actually said that to me. He feels he's never good enough for me. Fourth goal, to enable clients to shape a coherent sense of a competent self that can deal with existential life issues and become a fully alive human being. So you don't have to suppress parts of self, you don't have to run away from parts of self, you don't have to hide. You can welcome all parts of self and help them to work harmoniously to guide your life. And this is what I say to the son. Of course, it's so hard to listen to your father when he tells you to stop gaming. One of the most important developmental tasks as an adolescent is to find yourself, your identity, your value, your dreams, your peers, and how you can be yourself. And I see you working so hard to have your own autonomy, to live your life on your own terms, not on your father's terms. And this is so normal. This is so healthy and so necessary at this stage of your life. And then how does the son react? You see him loosen up. He raises his hand and looks at you. There's eye-to-eye contact, which means he's accepting himself. Okay. So we talk about EFT, emotionally focused therapy, which is the main approach that I use. Now, one of the impressive achievements in Asia is when I go back to do training in Hong Kong, I see the high-speed rail. Okay? So with the high-speed rail, you can hop on the train in Hong Kong in the evening, and you can wake up in Beijing the next morning. Right? Incredible. And this is the image, the analogy I want to use to help you to understand EFT, emotionally focused therapy. So there's a locomotive that pulls the train, right? So this locomotive we call EFT Tango, which is a set of interventions that we repeat over and over in the session. You know, to talk about what the EFT Tango is. Now, EFT Tango, the locomotive, it runs on fuel. And what is the fuel? That shapes changes emotion. So we help people connect with the emotion. Now, the most powerful force of change is emotion. Now, as a doctor, I know that. Because every New Year, people come in, I want to lose 10 pounds, I want to lose 20 pounds. They have strong will, they're very disciplined, they know this is the right thing to do. They come back, and what happens? Do they lose the weight? They might, but they regain it, right? So, strong will is not enough to change. Cognitively knowing what is right, what is good is not enough to change. Emotion is what motivates us to change. So when we can harness the power of emotion, we can have dramatic change within the session. So EFT train fueled by emotion, And as the EFT train moves forward, it brings us through 3 stages of EFT, which here are the 3 provinces. And each province are cities that we go through. Okay? So the EFT train pulls us from the starting place of insecure attachment, okay, incoherent, negative sense of self, to a place of secure attachment with self, with others, with God. Okay? And also positive sense of self. Now, I don't say self-esteem, I don't say view of self, because that's cognitive. I'm talking about sense of self. It's an experience, how you experience yourself. It's more important than how you see yourself. So this is the EFT tango. So there are 5 moves of EFT tango, and we just keep repeating it. So we show them what's happening. We mirror the present process. We put together emotions, affect, assembly, and deepening. We choreograph, engage, encounters. We create a new corrective emotional experience by processing the encounter, and then we integrate and validate. We do the same thing. If the person sitting is an individual, we do that with the counselor, with parts of self. Imagine important other people in their lives. We do that with partners. We do that with families. We can even do that in groups. So simple. Okay, so let's talk about how this works. So when we mirror present process, a lot of counseling approaches, they're focused on symptoms, targeting symptom, trying to reduce symptom. EFT does not target symptom. Instead, what it does is it shows people what is the underlying interactional process, how you engage with people, the underlying emotional process that are creating and maintaining these symptoms. So it goes a lot deeper. It goes at the roots of the problem. So when we mirror what's happening, we're reflecting, we're showing them what's happening between people, the interactional process, and the emotional process within that are creating and maintaining both distress and disconnection. The second move, affect assembly. Affect means emotion and deepening. So when we make sense of emotions, we change people's relationship with emotion. So instead of being afraid, running away, suppressing their emotion, turning to addictions, they can turn to their emotion and then harness emotion as a power, as a source of strength, as a compass, direction, as a guide. Okay? So in other words, when we make sense of emotions, we're rendering alien, frightening, unacceptable, understandable emotion into something that is normal, something that is human, something that's understandable, and something that's definitely manageable. So this is very important. So usually issues are not emotion. It's how we deal with emotion, what we do with emotion. We overeat, we turn to addictions, right? That's the problem. The problem is not emotion. And then the third move, we choreograph, we set up, engage encounters. So we're restructuring the attachment to create corrective emotional experiences. And when we have the individual, they can imagine how they talk to their partner, they can imagine how they talk to their kids, their parent, or other significant people in their lives. And then fourthly, we process the encounter. So we use a corrective emotional experience to challenge and reshape the sense of self and the sense of other. Okay? So we use experience, we use emotion to change cognition. CBT does the opposite. Try to use cognition to change emotion. We use emotion to change behavior. And lastly, we integrate and validate. We consolidate the positive change. So what does this look like in the counseling? Okay, so here we're working with the family as individuals. So I say to the father, and here I'm really soft and slow, I see you working so hard to be the father that you yourself never had. To be there to help and to guide your son. It is so hard when he rejects your help and your guidance. So notice the way I'm speaking. I'm not talking to this logical brain, this left brain. I'm talking to this emotional brain. I'm talking to this amygdala. So the soft, slow voice is how you talk to the amygdala. And the father, he starts to nod. Yeah. yes, you know what? I feel seen and understood when you say that. That's it. So when your son won't listen and stop gaming, your worries about him get the best of you. You feel the aggression take over as you try to fix it, and you remind yourself your son cannot succeed by gaming, but only by working hard like you. Then you start yelling, and the father relaxes. That's exactly what happens inside me when I get so angry. I want the best for my son, and it hurts so much when he doesn't see my love and good intentions. I'm already a much better father than my own father, who was so passive and totally absent. And he sighs, which is worth 1,000 words, right? And then we work with the mother, say to the mother, the image that comes to my mind is that you are trying to stop two out-of-control teenagers fighting and trying to hurt each other when your son and husband are fighting. Mother pauses. She thinks for a while. Yes, I never looked at it that way. No wonder I feel so hopeless and helpless and would rather not be here. And I continue to the mother. It makes so much sense that when you are stuck with this impossible task, your whole body tenses up and you tell yourself, I'd rather be dead than not to be in this situation. Am I getting it right? Mother will start. That's right. I really don't want to die, but I'm just looking for a way out of this painful, recurring situation of seeing the two people I really love fighting and hurting each other. So we make sense of the emotion. We help them see the interactional, emotional process that's causing the distress and the disconnection. So EFT train, we go through 3 provinces. These are the 3 stages: stabilization, restructuring attachment, and consolidation. And then the steps are the cities in each of the provinces. So how do we apply this to working with a couple? So we're going to use the same case example. So when we work with a couple, we're helping them to strengthen their attachment bond so that they can better regulate their emotions and stay balanced. And then the secure connection will also strengthen the parental co-alliance and counter any blame or shame that gets them dysregulated. Now, this is especially important when the kids are adolescents. This is the most challenging time for parents. And parents, they need partners to be a secure base and to be a safe haven in order to get through the kids' adolescence. So they can help each other be a secure base and safe haven also to the adolescent children and launch them successfully. So if they're drowning, treading water, it doesn't help the kids. If they're able to help each other stay balanced, it helps the kids a lot. So we think of adolescence as launching. So if you have a rocket, how do you launch a rocket? I think one of the crucial components is the launch pad, right? The launch pad has to be secure. We fuel up the rocket so the rocket can be launched. So when the parents have secure attachment, they have a good launch pad. What does it look like in the counseling room? So I say to the husband, that is a difficult place. When your son swears at you and tells you you don't even deserve to be called your father. The husband says, yeah. I start by apologizing. I ask my son what changes he wants to see. And if he continues to swear at me, eventually I just lose control. I blow up and I scream at him. I say to the husband, I wonder, what would happen if you imagine your partner telling you how she sees you working so hard to be a good father, to help and guide your son. She also tells you she sees how much you love your son and care for him. Husband, if I hear her validating me like that, I would relax and calm down right away. Those words, what you just said, are so comforting, so soothing, and they just take my anger away. But I also know that my partner will not say those words that mean so much to me. So then I turn to the wife. When your husband is stuck in his anger, feeling he's the worst father when his son is swearing at him, what he needs is someone to see and validate his hard work and love for his son. That would mean a lot to him and help diffuse his anger. Can you try to respond to him in a way that comforts and soothes him during these tough situations for both of you? Wife goes, come to think about it, that is very true. When we visit his father, he's still not engaged, even he's there. And I can really see how my husband's working hard to be a better father and to care for our son. So I asked the wife, could you turn to your husband, look at him and tell him that? You see his hard work and love for his son? So the wife turns to the husband, yeah, as the doctor says, you are a much better father than your own father. I can see how hard you are trying to help and guide our son and how much you care for him and worry over him. And then we ask the wife, what was it like to share that with your husband? The wife goes, that was hard. I'm usually so caught up with my anxiety, I just scream and try to separate them. I never thought that my husband needed me to validate, to comfort. And we help the husband process, move forward. What's it like to hear that from your wife? She notices your hard work and your love for your son. Her validating words took away my anger. I no longer feel I'm the worst father, as my son says. I'm comforted and soothed. The tension, aggression in the body seemed to just dissolve away. And I say to the husband, could you turn to your wife and tell her how important her understanding, support, and validation is when you are angry and feeling rejected by your son? Husband turns and laughs and says, yes, your support and validation changes everything. Okay, so we'll jump to families. How do we attach attachment to working with families? And here, it's a little bit different than couples because they are same, right? In families, there's always a hierarchy. So parents are always parents. The stronger, the bigger, the wiser kind self, right? So here, we help parents to be able to respond to their kids, okay? To provide the caregiving function that parents are supposed to do. And when we do that, we encounter blocks. So we help them to get through the blocks. So the blocks are usually a lot of blame and shame, feeling bad about themselves. And then once the parents are engaged, they're softened, they're accessible, available, respond to the kids, then we work with the kids, okay, to share what's going on, to share the needs, and to reach for the parents. Then we help the parents to respond to the kids. So those are the 3 stages when we work with families. Yeah, and one good way of looking at this, the blocks, in terms of blocking parents from being caregivers and blocking the kids from care seeking, is looking at the attachment type. So when the parents are anxious, they may over-respond, they may become overprotective, demanding, controlling, to overly permissive. And this results in the kids who react with a heightened, anxious engagement, hurt, fear, and anger. Or the parent might be dismissive, withdrawal, avoidant, and under response. So then the kids react to the block by distancing, also withdrawing, minimizing, denying, suppressing their own attachment-related emotions and needs. Okay, so we address the relational blocks, the empathic failures, and the attachment injuries. And this is what it looks like in the counseling group. So I say to the son, what happened when you told your father you had to do a group project and could not go to your grandparents for dinner as planned? Son, he told me that was fine and hope that I have enough time to get my project done. I asked him, how is this different from your previous response when you could not go to your grandparents' place? Before, he would tell me he knows that I'm not really doing my schoolwork and I'm just gaming with my friends, which would get me so mad. And even though I had no intention of gaming, I would game just to spite him. Father, we're getting better. I'm trying to control my anger. In fact, we haven't had a fight in over 2 weeks, which is a record for us. Okay? And we'll finish off with how we apply attachment to working with groups. Now, here all of you are way ahead of professionals. Okay? And people who minister in churches know the power of groups. You know how to set up groups. You know how to create and maintain groups. And you know how to get people involved in groups. Right? So you're way ahead of mental health professionals. So attachment-focused-based interventions, they're also group formats. So this is for families, so emotional-focused family therapy. So there are 2 programs, and they are standardized as a facility guide, videos, workbook for the participants. So you just buy the stuff and off you go, right? So the one for families with adolescent children is called Hold Me Tight, Let Me Go. The one for family with adult children is called Hold Me Tight, Let Me Be Me. And for couples, it's the same. They are free programs. So Hold Me Tight, Relationship Enhancement Education Program. And then the middle one is Creative for Connection, which is Hold Me Tight for Christian couples. And the last one is Healing Hearts Together for couples with cardiac disease. Okay? And the outcome research is excellent for these groups. So groups or couples have been around the longest and have the most outcome research demonstrating the effectiveness. So we have partnered with local faith communities and published our outcome with Chinese couple, showing improvement in all the dimensions of the dyadic adjustment scale, attachment security, and also family functioning. Groups based on emotion-focused individual therapy. So this is the new part. So I'm currently developing these groups. So I don't want to call Hold Me Tight, so we call it Journey to Wholeness, Coming Home to the Self. Journey to Wholeness, Coming Home to the Self. The Christian version is called Journey to Wholeness, Coming Home to the Self in Christ. Because in Christ adds so much more to it. So we're just developing these. All right, so an important part of my job is to build partnership with faith communities, and that multiplies the impact of everything that I do. Why? Systematic research in many countries find that religious coping is widespread, and it shows it reduces depression, people get over depression quicker. Now, in terms of what you shared at the beginning, we're living in a world with overwhelming needs, meager resources, inequities and barriers to access and mental health care. So partnerships with faith community can make a powerful impact. But this requires people like myself, mental health professionals, building partnerships with each of you, with local faith communities at multiple levels. So these are the multiple levels we can partner. So we can provide resources for and facilitating psychoeducation, provide training, supervision of lay caregivers, enhancing pastoral counseling, and facilitating referrals to professionals. And the outcome is tremendous. Right? So here we see 12 weeks self-esteem course, improvement in self-esteem, depression, anxiety, and relationship. And same with the couple courses. All right, so let's finish with this. So the family participate in our group. So the father, thank you so much for referring us to the Hold Me Tight and Go program. We completed 4 sessions already, and it's immensely helpful. I can see all the other families were like us. Every family has similar challenges and difficulty. We felt normal, accepted, understood, and supported. Mom says, I felt like everyone was talking about our family and seemed to know what was happening in our family from the shared experience. I don't feel as alone and isolated. I'm more hopeful that we will find a way out and not be stuck anymore. Father, it was important for us to do the homework together as a couple. That has helped us to be on the same page and openly discuss many issues and understand where each other is coming from. Now we can work better together as a team. Okay, so let's finish with a summary. So we use a clinical case. We show how we can use attachment to understand and transform behavior, condition, emotion, and relationship with God, family member, partners, and parts of self. And they also had the opportunity to experience how attachment can be applied to working with individuals, couples, families, and groups as if they were in the therapy room through the clinical example that I shared. So you need to contact me. That's our clinic website. And we also have a lot of different resources. We provide counseling. So we have a group of Christian physicians who provide primary mental health care. We also have 7 registered psychotherapists and social workers working at our clinic. And because the most efficient way to provide services is groups, we run a lot of groups. So we have a neurodiversity support group, where you start a mental health support group, a parenting support group. We have the Journey to Wholeness group. We have DBT groups, and we have the Creative for Connection groups, which I'm partnering with some Chinese churches, and we're actually doing those in person. Okay, so thank you for your attention. So hopefully this will provide you with some resources to move a few steps further on. Thank you. Now, if you need to go, you can go. If you need a break, you can have your break. If you want to stay and ask some questions, you're welcome to do so. Yeah, we also have a lot of handouts. If you're interested in getting them, there's a QR code. You can go to the link and download it.
Didn't really know the schedule very well. Thank you.